Southern Empire, it seems like it was decades ago that they came out with their great album, Civilization, which was actually one of the top prog albums, according to Sonic Perspectives, 5 years ago. And for many of us, it was the best prog album, one of the best perhaps from the last 5 years. Now the band has gone through COVID, as everybody has, and their new album, Another World, comes out on September 4th. And since the last one, Southern Empire has gone through a few minor changes when it comes to it. I'm Mark Boardman, along with Scott Medina of Sonic Perspectives, and we're talking with two members of Southern Empire, producer keyboardist Shaun TIMMS, who we will refer to as Shaun the Elder, and vocalist Shaun Holton, who we will refer to as Shaun the Younger. Welcome, guys.
Just call him Junior. Just call him Junior.
Junior, yeah. All right.
Yeah, catching on.
Well, yeah. Scott, not Scott, Shaun TIMMS, give me a quick rundown. What happened over the last 5 years? Why did it take quite so long to get the new one out?
Oh, I guess there was a lot of factors. I was working on a few other albums, and you know, sort of trying to get them done as well. COVID meant that although the gigs dried up for working musicians, they took that as an opportunity to do a lot more studio work. So my recording studio got very, very busy. We did extensions on our house, and I built a home studio and moved in a year last December. And I guess all sorts of things really. I did a TV series for Netflix, which took up, you know, probably about 3 to 4 months of my time full time. And then we pretty much had it all done about a year ago. And then Danny, previously singer, frontman extraordinaire, decided that he wanted to move on and pursue other things. So very amicable, very open, honest conversation, which it's always been with Danny. Yeah, so then we after a moment of panic set in, we set about the almost monumental and impossible task of finding a replacement. And then we just kind of felt, well, let's not replace him. Let's just get someone who's just even more betterer. I guess, and as amazing a frontman as Danny is, there were some opportunities there that we could have a look at someone who was potentially, long-term for the band, and also had some production skills, and apart from amazing vocal talents, but could, produce, songwrite, play, and all of that. So I asked the guys if they could recommend anyone, and Cam immediately came back to me and said, Shaun Holton. And I've been aware of Shaun's existence. He sent me something for this TV series that I was working on, which he wasn't right for, only from the viewpoint of the series was sort of aimed at 14, 15-year-old girls. So we just needed somebody probably more in their late teens and early 20s, as good as he was. So and then I listened to some more of his stuff and thought, wow, this could really work. And probably then over to Shaun the Younger, who henceforth shall be named Shaun Jr.
Shaun Jr. We should clarify that, in fact, Danny had already cut the album Another World, at least in terms of his vocals. So you've got that stashed somewhere.
We do.
some
Yeah,
25 years down the road, you could release
yeah.
that.
We'll save it for the 20-year anniversary edition. You know, we'll do the remaster, you know, remaster double, you know, whatever, box set.
Shaun Jr. You have played with Cam on a number of occasions. Were you aware of Southern Empire prior to the audition process and everything coming together?
Yeah, I used to stare at the Southern Empire poster at the Louder Guitar. There's a friend of mine who's a guitar luthier, and he runs a really popular like guitar repair business on the side as well. And so I would see Cam's face in there all the time. But basically up until I first started speaking with Shaun when they were looking for a new singer, yeah, I'd basically just been aware that my friend Cam was in a band called Southern Empire, and that was about all the information that I really had.
But they contacted you, you did an audition. What was entailed in that audition?
Well, first I had to listen to the beautiful work that had already been essentially completed by Danny. And I also have a copy on my hard drive somewhere. I won't let anybody listen to it. I listened to it recently, just for fun. And yeah, none of you guys are ever going to hear it, but his is better. But
No, it's not. No.
No, it's not.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Shaun the Elder, Senior, when we talked last, you mentioned that the first two Southern Empire albums were not intended to be Southern Empire albums. What was the deal with that?
Yeah, well, I guess there were songs off the first two albums that were written for an abandoned Unitopia album, and when we split in 2014, Mark used some of the songs for his UPF first album, and I used some of the songs for the first Southern Empire album, and then there was one song out of the four that on Civilisation, the second album, that I extended and used from those sessions. But this album is totally new, totally original material written specifically with Southern Empire in mind and not any other, you know. But I'm already looking forward to Southern Empire 4 because it means that Shaun will have a big hand in the songwriting, as will Cam again, and we'll be able to write to Shaun's voice and to Shaun's strengths, which are many and varied.
I should toss it over to my colleague, Scott Medina.
Well, you know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the See Within project from Rona Stolt. It was just a one album that they did, and they completed the album pretty much. And then their lead singer decided he wasn't gonna go the long run in the band, and Royna was like, "What do I do?" And in that case, they brought in Casey McPherson to sort of be the new lead singer, but they only had him sing, I think, on a couple tracks of the album, and so it was sort of split. It had this kind of split identity, and so I'm just wondering a little bit about your process, Shaun, when you realized that Danny's leaving the band. I mean, did you look at different options? Did you think like, all right, well, we could just release the album as it is and then get a new singer to tour it? Or did you ever even think of just staying a quartet and having Cam be the lead singer since he's got great pipes? Or how did you decide, no, let's get a full-time new lead and have him overdub the entire album?
Yeah, look, I think for me it was, you know, when Danny left, it was I guess there was a finality to it with him. We hadn't got promo publicity shots yet, so we were going to have to, you know, pose for photos with him in it, knowing he'd already left the band. We'd have to do film clips with him in it, knowing that he'd already left the band. We'd be doing interviews, probably, with him not being involved and knowing he'd already left the band. And I think there would be a certain element, we could kind of predict the future and see a certain element of frustration and possibly sadness at that whole thing, and kind of go, yeah. So I just felt that for the relatively small amount of work, certainly with Shaun, because he came in and he sang pretty much the whole album in an afternoon, in about a 3-hour session. It was incredible. Yeah, and then it was just a matter of doing a few touch-ups and a few edits and things like that. But apart from that, pretty much whatever you hear is what he sang on the day. And so I thought, for that small amount of work, I just felt, we all felt it was really worthwhile doing. Since then we got the publicity shots, and we've got a couple of clips that we've put out, and Shaun's been a part of every interview that I've done so far, which is great. I just say, "Hey, I've got an interview," and he goes, "I'm there, man, I'm there," so which is fantastic to have that kind of energy in the band, because the other guys are a little more laid back, probably a little more shy, and a little more reticent maybe to do these sorts of things. So I think I could just kind of see the outcome of that not being ideal, and I thought, rather than almost flog a dead horse, really, it was time to kind of put on a new suit and run with it. So and to me it was I guess, there was a disappointment, obviously, but there was an excitement about it as well. Oh, okay, well, hey, what can we do, kind of thing. So it was very, yeah, I always kind of tend to look on the positive side of things, and the opportunities that maybe things that you see as being a bit of a a burden or a bit of a downer. You can kind of turn them around and turn them into something positive. So yeah, I just saw it as an opportunity, really, and I think the rest of the guys did as well. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it certainly bode well and turned out into a great result. And Shaun Jr., hey, it's
Hey, mate.
nice to have you here with us. And so let's hear a little bit about it from your perspective. I mean, we just heard that so far Cam was a friend and Southern Empire was a poster on the wall. Beyond that, like, did you know much about this progressive rock world? Like, Shaun is like, the elder is drawing from his influences and loves of this genre for decades. For you, is this kind of another world that you're stepping into, or how did this whole process hit you?
Yeah, so funnily enough, the reason Cam and I became friends, so I still like to consider myself a young man, but when I was an even younger man, in Adelaide, sadly, there's not a huge prog community. So if you like prog and you find a friend in Adelaide that likes prog, you hold them dearly. So Cam was one of those friends. The reason Cam and I came into contact with each other was because in around about 2008, I'd just come off of about a 2-year tour in the Middle East as a working singer. And I'd come home specifically to write my first prog album. So in my sort of like late high school years and, my brief run with studying music before I went abroad to play, I was massively into Porcupine Tree and Pink Floyd and Opeth and, Pineapple Thief and just anything that was prog. And at that time, and coming out of essentially the UK, but I really was massive fan of sort of like European like death metal and soil work and In Flames and all that sort of stuff. And so, you know, aside from a select few people, there weren't many people in my life that were into that sort of thing. So Cam was actually going to be part of a live iteration of a one-man essentially prog project that I started in 2008. So I did a 3-album trilogy called the Earth World Trilogy: Earth to World, Earth versus World, and Earth Meet World. And serendipitously kind of tied up. Took me about 10 years to get through those 3 albums, and lots of life and marriage and, you know, fatherhood and all of those things crammed in between. And so I tied up my Earth World series, and then unwittingly later found myself literally in another world. So that's just a weird turn of events.
Nice. And so thanks for that background. Wow, that's fascinating. And then, so when you got the invite, was it a slam dunk immediately for you? Did you have to, you know, think about it, and then going into it, what was that like, listening to Danny's vocals and you know, thinking like, is this a right fit for me and all that?
Yeah, it was actually one of those times where the perfect opportunity comes to you at a time where it's not the best or probably most appropriate time in your life to be diving into a creative endeavor. So I actually just moved myself, my family, you know, my children and my dogs into my parents' 2-bedroom apartment, because we found ourselves in the middle of this weird rental crisis that's happening in Australia. And it was just off the back of COVID, and I'm a working musician, so I'd lost a lot of gigs and money, and, you know, went and got a regular job like you know, like you're supposed to do. And I was hard at work, desperately putting funds together to buy a house for my family, because in our economy at the moment, it's strangely, you've got a better chance of getting a mortgage than you can you know, expect to afford to pay the rent rates at the moment. So we knew that renting wasn't going to be an option. We weren't going to be able to live that way. So I was halfway through that. And I wasn't in the most optimistic mindset. I just kind of had put music aside, essentially. I didn't know how long it was going to take for us to get this house sorted. So I just really wasn't looking at that at all. I happened to be having a day off because I'd caught COVID this particular week, and I had a missed call. At that time, I was also avoiding debt collectors. So if I didn't know your number, I didn't answer the phone call. So Shaun left me a message and a text. And I initially thought, because as Shaun mentioned before, that I approached him with interest with a Netflix thing that he was doing. So initially I just thought maybe he had another project, some commissioned work or something, and maybe, you know, I was the guy for that. And so he gave me a brief rundown on the situation, and having not listened closely to the music before, I knew that, you know, Southern Empire had done really well for themselves, essentially just through Cam, but I hadn't really listened to it. So, you know, I got Shaun to send me a copy of the album. And I'm sitting next to my wife, who's also sick with COVID at the time, and I'm listening really analytically, and I haven't done my homework yet, and I don't even really understand who this opportunity is coming from. And I'm making all these notes, and I'm like, oh, well, I would change this, and, you know, like the words should be more like this. And I'm texting this to Shaun, and then I've Googled him like 10 minutes later and realized, like, oh, maybe he knows what it needs, you know. So I'm jamming away, and you know, my mind's going crazy, and my wife's listening, and she's very rarely absolute about things. So on the one hand, she married me because she likes my voice, but doesn't really like any of the music that I do with it. And so she just basically kind of like grabbed me and shook me and was like, you know, what do you mean you're not sure? Like, no, you're doing this. This is what you're doing. And that was it. So it was a slam dunk for me very quickly. I went and sang one song that Shaun let me pick out of the bunch. And when I heard that back, I literally cried because, you know, I'd started prog projects long before, and they were one-man band projects because I just couldn't find people to make the music that I wanted to make. And I did the best job I could, and I'm really proud of what I made. But, you know, I was really trying to do this. And, you know, I'm a singer before anything else. I can save my life if I have to on an instrument, or write a song that no one else will write with me. But ultimately, I'm definitely a singer. And it's, I know being a singer is kind of like being an actor in some ways. And in some ways, you're only as good, and your performance can only be as good as the material that you're given. And so this was a huge step up for me in terms of scope and range. And, you know, I was massively doubtful that I was going to be able to achieve a lot of the stuff that I'd heard. Danny's an incredible singer. So I kind of went in doubtful and was just kind of sort of like pleasantly surprised as things went along, and how easy it was to work with Shaun. I think because all the stuff I'd done beforehand was mainly produced by myself or with friends, and, you know, borrowing and stealing. And so we're doing the first session, and I think I sang a funny note, and I must have quickly said, "Oh, sorry," you know. And Shaun just stopped everything and said, "You don't like ever have to apologize for any of the sounds that you make in that room." And I dropped my shoulders, belted out the rest of the song. And then that was kind of it for me. I knew that I really wanted to be in this band. And so then it took me a handful more songs and months of deliberation and internal debate to eventually convince everybody else of that. And they'd say, come back and sing something else. And I'd say, no worries, because in my mind, this was already like in the bag. I'll just keep coming back until you all agree with me. Fortunately, well, that's where we got.
Well, I'm already excited for album number 4, and getting the two Shauns together in the writing process. That's gonna be really cool.
Yes,
It is. Yeah,
I'm sure
definitely
you're
looking forward to
that
it
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shaun the Elder, while Southern Empire is not a Christian band per se, a lot of the lyrics refer to your faith, and some are direct quotes from the Bible, or at least are pretty close to it. Do you intentionally use the Christian symbolism, or is this something that just comes out?
Yeah, look, I think it just comes out. A couple of weeks ago, I realized I'd been a Christian for 41 years, so which is a fair degree. So you know, for me, it's a big part of my life, and it you know, my beliefs, you know, my belief system, whether it's pertaining to my Christian walk, or whether it's basically just ideas I've formulated along the way of being on this planet for a bit over 60 years now. That just comes out in my songwriting, in my lyrics. And you know, so it might be just you know, obviously my faith governs a lot about the way I feel about things, but also I think it's having a bit of an understanding of what's going on in today's society, and making a comment about that's not that's maybe observational rather than confrontational. I'm probably more of a you know, a question asker rather than a statement maker. I think that, you know, you ask questions, you seek to learn, you seek to grow, you seek to expand your horizons, whereas you make statements and it's a bit like, well, yeah, that's closed-minded, you know. And so I tend to try and be as, you know, open to new ideas and possibilities, while still keeping my basis, you know, my grounding in my faith. But you know, I think if you you know, it's like, you know, I have a lot of friends who are atheists, and that's perfectly fine. You know, some of them are really dear friends, and I just say, well, hey, what kind of God do you not believe in? And so I ask questions and they tell me, and I go, well, look, I don't really believe in that kind of God either. And so, and then they go, oh, okay, well, tell me more. And so, you know, I think for me, it's all about seeking to understand, you know, other people and what makes them tick and what makes the world tick, and where we are is in today's society, with so many, you know, I have two boys, 13 and 8, so they're really quite young still. And, you know, the world they're growing up in, it, to me, it is, you know, and I'm sort of, you know, it is another world really that they're growing up in. And hence the title and a lot of the thematic concept of the album is how rapidly things are changing. And you can either resist it, or you don't need to necessarily embrace it, but you don't have to resist it either. You can seek to understand. And for me, that's what, you know, living life's all about is, you know, oh, okay, you're a Buddhist. Oh, all right, well, tell me more. What does that entail? Why did you, you know, and I think it's all about asking questions and seeking understanding. Yeah. And you don't have to adopt any of those things, but I think the more you know about someone and what makes them tick, then the more you're able to identify with them and look for the commonalities rather than the differences.
John the Younger, were you able to relate to those concepts when you were taking his lyrics and singing them?
Yeah, I from so not religion wasn't a strong part of my family or my, I guess, my home, like immediate home life. But I was always personally very interested in Christianity at a young age. We would go camping at this place called Port Elliot every year for about as long as I can remember. And there would be sort of Christian like youth activities and organizations and things that they would put on. And it was just basically fun stuff. And they just sort of gather up all of the kids hanging out at the campsite around New Year's time. And I must have been like 7 or 8 or so, and took some interest in some of the contents they put on plays and things. And someone handed me a New Testament, and I went off and read the New Testament, and which was really impactful for me at a young age. And then basically that was kind of the end of my relationship with you know, church groups and things like that. Not necessarily by choice or whatever. It was just sort of cross paths for a little bit and then moved on. But I very much took on the values and the teachings of Jesus and stuff very seriously. You know, in terms of the development of the type of person you might want to be. And I remember as a young person really identifying with that and trying to model myself off of that. So those themes have been something that I've had my own sort of little personal relationship with. And yeah, like, you know, for me, for my little journey with religion, yeah, I guess had this really fortunate, perfect little, you know, fling. Yeah, it was fine. So to sing about this stuff, it's not super far away from me. It's not something that I, you know, that I'm not a practicing of any sort of spirituality, but open-minded. I change my mind what I believe quite often, but I try to believe good things and in good people. So and kind of you know, like I mentioned, it's really enjoyable to step into the role sometimes of the song that you're singing. And having spent such a long period of time in my life, you know, singing things that had been completely orchestrated by me and imagined by me, it was really enjoyable to step into a story that wasn't penned by me, but, you know, allowed to come through me and my little instrument.
Yeah, let's look at maybe a song or two on what the story is, you know, Another World is. You know, like I'm interested in Shaun the Elder for When You Return. You know, we've got Lisa's spoken word overdubs going on there, the celestial vibes, and of course you've had kind of the science fiction thing running through there.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the story on that song.
That one, I was reading about the Fermi Paradox, which, if you haven't heard of that, is if aliens are supposed to exist, then why haven't any, contacted us? I guess, and if they're out there, then why aren't we aware of them, and are they aware of us? So, that I was reading a little bit about that, and that kind of got me. A lot of my songs come from reading, and it'll just come from an idea like that. And there are lots of programs on TV that deal with that sort of subject matter, not just ET, I guess, but. And so I thought it was an interesting idea to maybe write a song about that, and then that kind of developed from that initial idea, is there something or somebody out there, to almost a love song, so it's almost like this person that you meet and you gravitate to, and they're in your life, and then they're not in your life anymore, and you imagine that they might be on another, a different suburb, or a different universe, or a different planet, or something like that, but far away enough that you can't reach them, and so it kind of turns into a bit of a love song then. The narration, again, it was something I'd seen someone speaking about this and life on other planets, and I liked some of the words, so I kind of paraphrased it, reworded it, and I thought, who do I know that's got an American accent that can do this? And then Lisa, sprang to mind, and I said, would you like to do some narration and play some percussion? Because we'd become friendly, via Facebook and things like that, and I'd always been a huge fan of John's, and so having that connection there was really important as well, to have her on the album. And I guess, yeah, as I said, it developed into a bit of a love song. When you return, when you are here again, yeah, it's things will be better. And it's also, again, as Mark said before, my faith comes in there, and so you can parallel that maybe with the, Jesus return. So it can be about that. It can be about a love story. It can be about the Fermi Paradox. It can be about lots of things, but it's not about any one of them in particular. It's more, I guess, an abstract story that people can kind of read their own, their own kind of interpretation into. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sounds like the archetype of longing. It's like the archetype of longing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. And you mentioned that Lisa Wetton does some percussion on that, and I think that's the tune. Is it Brody though who's doing, the hand percussion and with the groove?
I use a lot of samples, a lot of rhythmic kind of samples and things, and but yeah, Brody does a lot of it. Lisa did the some congas, bongos, and shakers and stuff like that. Yeah, we just kind of collect lots of different sources. Some of it I program in and then we replace later. Some of it sounds fine, so I don't bother replacing. Yeah, it just depends on what it is. There's no hard and fast rules, which is the nice thing about prog. you know, when I produce other artists, it's like, okay, well, it's got to sound like this, you know, or it's got to sound like that. And you kind of go, okay, if you want it to sound like that, we need to do this, 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 and this. But with you know, with prog, with Southern Empire, there's no rules. The gloves are off. We can just, if we want to use a sample, we use a sample. If we want to, you know, get a sax player in, we get a sax player in, you know, and you know, if we want to want some percussion, then hey Lisa, you know, would you like to? Yeah. So which is great. So it's great to have this fraternity of people that you can call on, and it works both ways. I played a keyboard solo for Marek Arnold's art rock project, his latest album, which has only just been released and getting glowing reviews. And you know, so yeah, I enjoy contributing to other people's projects as they would mine. So yeah, it's all about kind of spreading the love, I think.
Brilliant. Right.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the band is the vocals, and like, you know, I liked in your credits how you say that, you know, Brody's got these ridiculously high backing vocals.
Yeah. He's a freak.
I'm listening to the album and I'm just like, before I read that, I'm like, man, Shaun is like overdubbing some seriously crazy things on top. How does that even happen? And then, and so it might have been Brody, but so Shaun, what's that like for you coming in as a lead singer? You've got a lot of support in this just bed of backing vocals. It's amazing.
It's like you've got the full prog orchestra, so there's no idea that's out of reach, which is, you know, it's flying without limits essentially.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's great because, you know, I think Shaun, the younger, sits really well in between Cam and Brody, you know, with his range. Because, like, Brody seriously is a freak. You know, there's a little bit off our first album from The Bridge That Binds where he's doing this kind of counter melody, or, you know, this ad lib that, you know, and it's full voice and it's not falsetto. It's, you know, it's ridiculous. And but then again, I've heard Shaun, you know, I did a little video of one of the songs as a bit of a promo, and which Shaun cut together for me, and so I was in the room with him. I wasn't recording him. I was listening to him back in the same room. And my goodness, the volume that comes out, you know, from you know, from his lungs is ridiculous. And so yeah, and then Cam is a different beast again. He's just got that, you know, that warmth and that slightly husky tone. So, and then I kind of put my voice works really well as a harmony singer, and mine is a lot thinner and more reedy sounding than anyone else's in the band. And so what I do is I multi-track my voice. So I might have maybe a dozen tracks of mine, and what I do is I get the guys to double those tracks, and so you have this, you know, Queen-esque kind of you know, thing going on where I think Cam on one song sung about 30 tracks, and I'd sung about 30 tracks, and Brody had sung a pile, and then Shaun comes in and sings lead over the top. And the only person in the band that didn't sing any vocals on this is Jez, and I think that was just probably a time constraint on his behalf. But he's also got a really good voice as well. You know, his voice sort of suits that kind of pop punky type, you know, vibe to it. So yeah, it's one of the, I guess, prerequisites when I auditioned everyone and gathered the band together was the fact that, you know, yes, you can play, but can you sing? And I really wanted to have a band of musicians who could sing equally as well as they could play. And I think that's what we have with that. So yeah, very fortunate.
We spoke before a bit about live performances, and obviously taking it overseas is a very expensive proposition. But you just talked a bit about it's difficult to do in Australia because the prog community is relatively small. Can you talk about
Well,
that?
yeah. I mean, look, the other thing too is the prog community is small. And Australia is big. It's about as big as the United States, but we've really only got, I guess, 5 capital cities you could play in: Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney. And so when you Adelaide to I guess Adelaide to Brisbane is a similar distance as sort of, I guess, Dallas to New York. It's like a 3-hour plane flight. And so, and our nearest capital city, Melbourne, is 800 kilometers away. So it's a full day's drive. And if you fly there, then it's hundreds of dollars each. So trying to book and organize a tour, people have to take their weekends off and take a day off either side. And it's not always easy when people have, they have gigs on the weekend, they have families to look after, and all of that kind of stuff. So that makes it logistically difficult. It makes it prohibitively expensive to tour. And also even putting on shows here in Adelaide. When we did our album launch for the first album, it cost us $6,000 to put on, and we only just broke even. We had a couple of hundred people to the show, and we had easily that when we toured, the UK and Europe. I never say never. Sometimes the opportunity will arise, and then we'll kind of go, hey, look, there's an opportunity to do this. Do you guys want to do it? And it's mainly kind of support. So Opeth, we supported Opeth a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And a year or so before that, we supported Haken as well. So, and they pull reasonable crowds, and so we can get in front of a crowd of about 1,000 people in front of an Opeth show, or 500 people in a Haken show. So yeah, it's just not ideal because there aren't that many people. You could, if we publicized it and if we promoted the absolute, crap out of it, we might get 250 people. Whereas, Shaun and I recently worked together on a John Farnham tribute show, and we had 350 people there, and I've had at least 50 people say, I wish I'd have known it was on, I would have come. So, John Farnham here is like he's a local hero, and an Australian icon. So to very well liked, very well loved, and so you're going to get a lot of people to a tribute show, but it just makes it makes it hard if it's an original band playing 30-minute songs and people kind of go, oh, it's a bit cold, I think I might stay home, and that's the way it is. And yeah, as much as it would be fun playing this live, it's logistically quite difficult where we're situated. If we were all living in the UK or North America or somewhere like that, where it was a little easier to make some money and get some heads through the door, then things will be different. But being from Adelaide, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, we'll just have to get you over for some festival or another, I guess.
We would love to. We jump at the chance. I think I speak for everyone. Shaun the Younger, you'd be happy to go over and do a prog festival, I'm assuming?
I'm happy to go anywhere. If people are bringing me somewhere, I'll go.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, Shaun the Elder, you will be coming over to the States in a few weeks to perform at one of those festivals.
Yeah. We've got Unitopia doing a 3-week tour in Europe, and I leave on Monday. Then we get back and we're back home for a couple of weeks, and then I fly out again for another week. You know, I mean, look, Unitopia is sort of in an unusual space in that we have a promoter who's put up front a lot of money. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars to get this tour happening, because he loves and believes in the band so much. And we also have a multi-millionaire guitarist in the band, so that kind of helps as well. So if there's any shortfall, he will go, yep, sure, no worries. I can cover that, you know. So we wanted to put together, you know, some video, video sequences to help support the music. And the guy that we employed to do that has done an amazing job, but that was $5,000. And so John, our guitarist, said, look, I'll cover that. And you know, whereas, you know, most people would kind of go, yeah, that would be nice to do, but we kind of really don't have that, you know, to spend on video, or let's get my mate Joe down the road to do it. He'll do it for $500 kind of thing. And it looks like it, you know. So it's a different situation. And even with that, I'm like a hired hand. I'm not what I would say, you know, a band member anymore. You know, I'm sort of going along to play the music because I co-wrote and produced it and engineered and mixed it and mastered it. So I'm kind of getting paid to do it. So it's not like it's a different kind of a beast, you know. Even though I'm a founding member of Unitopia, you know, I'm in a different position these days. I prefer to concentrate on Southern Empire, and this is I guess a one-off, you know. And I think it's an opportunity to kind of leave the whole Unitopia brand on a more positive note than what happened in 2014. So yeah, you know, but I took a fair bit of convincing to actually commit to doing the album in the first place, and then took a bit more convincing to commit to the tour. But as I said, that it's all expenses are covered and I'm getting paid, so I'm you know, it's like a job for me. Whereas you know, producing the artists that I produce and working with you know, Southern Empire, that's my passion. And it's not to say I don't enjoy doing the Unitopia stuff. I do. It's really good fun. It's really good music. I think you'll enjoy the new album, and I'm very proud of it. But it's kind of like I guess, you know, I have 2 ex-wives, and I have a current wife, and I love my current wife and my current family dearly, and I wouldn't swap any of them for the world. But I'm friendly with my ex-wife, you know. You know, and I guess Unitopia is a bit like an ex-wife. I'm friendly with them, you know, and you know, and you know, you can kind of, you know, you have a bit in common and you share a few memories and all of that kind of stuff. But it's not like, you know, it's not like you're real, you know, your soulmate. So I guess Southern Empire is my soulmate.
I think the distinction is now clear. Yes, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think you dug yourself back out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, look, absolutely. I do that. I dig myself in, I dig myself out all the time.
Shaun Jr., now that you are once again a working musician and not having to go into a call center every day,
Yeah.
you've actually got an Elton John tribute coming up.
Yeah. I have been fortunate enough with Cam as well. Cam's in the show. Roughly about a week from now, Cam and I and an 11-piece band are going to be performing with the Southern Cross Orchestra, and we'll be doing a huge romp through the Elton John catalog, fully orchestrated.
That'll be pretty cool.
And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pissed that I'm pissed that I'm not a part of it.
Yeah.
We miss you. We definitely miss you.
Maybe next time. Next time.
Yeah.
That brings back to mind the I don't know if have you heard the live Elton John album from Sydney from the 80s
Yes.
with orchestration, everything. It's just that's a beautiful album. I love the renditions of the songs on that one.
That inspired this whole thing. So this is a throwback to that particular tour. Yeah.
Nice. Oh boy, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I hear you're going to also sing with another Sonic Perspectives friend, Joshua Batten, at some point in, I think it's a blues festival. He said he was hopefully going to sing with you on a song there.
Yeah, he wants me to come and do some Farnham. He's a big John Farnham fan as well. All of us fanatics. Being a John Farnham fan is almost, I mean, he's much further reaching in Australia than prog, but it's one of those things as well where, you know, only to a select number of people can you admit that you're a John Farnham fan. But I think in maybe the last 12 months or so, the country's gone through a transition where it's now unanimous that we all love and cherish John Farnham now. So yeah, so since I've done this Farnsey tribute show, anyone and everyone has come forward as a closeted fanatic and wants to perform Farnham with me now. So I'll be riding Farnham into the distant sun.
And if you haven't heard much John Farnham, which you guys probably haven't, because I don't know how big he is or was or has been over in North America, but have a listen to his cover of "How the Beatles Help." Just look up, you know, I help John Farnham. Seriously incredible vocal performance. You know, I mean, every song he sings, he makes his own, but yeah, have a listen to that. That will send chills down your spine.
John Farnham is the most metal every man family, like the singer for the Australian Family pop guy, but he just has the most incredible voice and range and textures. And if you ever want to know anything about singing of any kind, John Farnham, just watching John Farnham is the entire playbook on how to sing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's actually nicknamed in Australia The Voice. That's how highly regarded he is as a singer. So yeah, get some stuff, listen to it, and you'll see what we mean. And for Shaun to pull that off, you know, incredibly well a few weeks back is a testament to his vocal prowess as well. So yeah, that was you know, every note was there, and it was just a fantastic night. So I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, we're planning the next one. It's underway.
Yeah, good. Yeah, count me in.
We are getting pretty close to time, but I have to ask, and it almost seems like I'm jumping the gun, since this album, Another World, is coming out in September 4th. Have you already started coming up with ideas for, want of a better term, Southern Empire 4?
Who wants to take that, Shaun?
Well, so I mean, I've been keeping my chill because Shaun's got lots on his plate. But once he gets back, I've just been holding it back. But I have demos and multi-tracks and stereo panned mixes and orchestral stuff and whatever. So I'm going to be absolutely just pounding Shaun's inbox with stuff very soon.
Pound away. Yeah, I just need to get you know, get this Unitopia tour out of the way. You know, I've cleared a lot of things off my plate this year that were sort of hanging around. You're finishing, you know, doing recording an album and writing and recording an album and mixing and producing and mastering it is normally a 2 to 3 year process. So it's been about 3 years working on the Unitopia album. It was about 3 to 4 years working on the Dominic album, which was released earlier this year. It was a 5-year process working on Southern Empire, and a 2-year process working on John Greenwood's album. So, which if you haven't heard, please give that a listen, because if you like Hackett era, Genesis, and you like Steve Hackett, you will love this stuff. It's got a lot of Hackettisms on it, and I'm very proud of that. The work John and I have done on that. I'm very proud of the work that I did with the third Dominic album. I think Guy's just an amazing writer. Quite self-deprecating, because he sort of listens to Danny and he listens to Shaun, and he says to me the other day, he goes, "Oh, they just leave me for dead." And I said, "Well, yeah, they're very, very fine singers, but I said, look, I enjoy listening. It's like comparing John Anderson to Ian Anderson. They're two different beasties, and so." I think Guy's voice is, he calls it Vegemite. You either love it or you hate it. But I really love his voice, and I think he's a bit too self-deprecating. And the same with John. I mean, John's got a very fine voice as well. And so I'm working with some incredibly talented people on lots of albums, and which, as I said, have sort of all been released in this small period of time, over the sort of middle part of this year, which is great. So yeah, I forget where I was going with that. I forget what the question was. I have no idea. I've totally lost my train of thought. It's 11 o'clock here or something. I'm normally in bed snoring by this time.
and Scott still is too, as a matter of fact.
Well, yeah, you could see the sun rising here in Boulder.
There you go.
Yeah,
lower the blind as it was coming up.
You're in Boulder.
Yeah.
That's a nice part of the world.
It's gorgeous here. Yeah.
It is the deprivation float tank capital of the planet.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And know that. That's interesting. All right.
Whereabouts are you, Mark? What state are you in?
We're in Indiana. We're just outside Indianapolis.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. Yeah, I haven't been there yet. I plan to make it there one day.
Well, we've got the extra bed here for you, so anytime you want to come, stay with us. Yeah.
Excellent. That's good. You're going to need 2 beds, because I have the wife and kids with me. So, they have to come.
We got it covered. Well, it has been great. It has been great to talk to you both. And we're certainly looking forward to everybody hearing Another World when it comes out on September 4th.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, great talking with you guys, and again, fantastic album. Of course, it worth the wait.
Absolutely. Shaun Jr. Holton and Shaun the Elder TIMMS are with the Australian prog group Southern Empire. And again, the new album comes out September 4th. It is Another World. I'm Mark Boardman, along with Scott Medina, both of us from Sonic Perspectives. And for the latest news, interviews, and reviews, go to sonicperspectives.com. And yes, Scott has a wonderful review of this particular album. See you soon.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, guys.